NBA players who played for the most teams. On average, NBA players spend 4.8 years in the league before they're kicked out for a new batch of players. Anyone who plays beyond 5 seasons has played at an above average level to continue to play at the highest level possible. While some believe chemistry issues and bad fits are the true reasons why these players played for half of the league's teams, some believe that meritocracy and being average is why each player failed to stick on one team. Either way, these players still showed passion, gave it all they had, and played until they were told they couldn't play anymore. It didn't matter to these athletes where they were playing, as long as they were on a roster in the NBA. Keep watching to see which NBA players played for the most teams in NBA history. Oli. Oli started his career in the CBA before he signed a contract with the Dallas Mavericks in 1997. After that, he played for 10 other franchises throughout his career. Oli played with the Orlando Magic twice, the Sacramento Kings, and then the Philadelphia 76ers 3 times. He also played for the New Jersey Nets, Chicago Bulls, Indiana Pacers, Milwaukee Bucks, Seattle Supersonics once and the Thunder once, Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Minnesota Timberwolves. As his career was winding down, he was a 37-year-old guard and a backup to the backup on the playoff-bound Oklahoma City Thunder when Durant and Westbrook were still on the squad. He was someone who averaged 3.8 points per game, but managed to put together an 11-team, 12-city, 13-year career. Don't get it mistaken though. One time, Oli played in Philadelphia for 4 seasons. The quickest stop was the one in Orlando. That literally lasted 4 minutes. Dallas, Orlando, then Sacramento, back to Orlando, Oli said, trying to recall all of his stops to the New York Times. New Jersey, no. Think it may have been New Jersey. No, it was Philly. Philly, then New Jersey. Got let go, back to Philly. After Philly was, Chicago. Chicago got traded to Indiana. Milwaukee got traded to Seattle. Signed a 5-year deal in Cleveland. Traded to Philly. Played the 4 years there. Went to Minnesota, then came here. The here was Oklahoma City, where he seemed to cherish his time with the Thunder. There might have been a couple of wrong steps there, but it was pretty close, Oli said. There have only been 3 other players who played for more franchises. We'll get to that in a bit. Sure, the math is complicated because Oli only officially played for 11 franchises. Due to the fact that NBA players are signed, dropped, and traded so much more than back in the day, Oli might have had more teammates than any other player in history. Nobody has the time to look up that stat. One door closes and another opens, Oli said, and if it's not a door, it's a window that's going to be open. I'm gonna find my way back into the house again. You better believe that. Oli is more famous for his head coaching stint with the UConn Huskies. It started off with a bang, including a Big East championship followed by a national championship. He's no longer coaching there for many violations. When he was with the Thunder, he was basically there to mentor the second-year starter Russell Westbrook. The Thunder figured that Oli would be able to help as a solid ball handler and strong defender. Oli would be that guy who does things right and shows professionalism. Oli averaged nearly 15 minutes a game through the season's first month. Soon, he had a knee injury that required surgery. Oli was replaced by rookie Eric Maynor, who was traded from Utah to back up Oli. However, when Oli came back, his new requirements came from the bench and not the court. It's been fantastic being around the kids and understanding who they are as people and who we are as a whole, Oli said. It's been a great year for me, on and off the basketball court. Oli played his college ball at Connecticut, where he was the point guard. He actually went undrafted in 1995 and spent a couple of seasons in the minor leagues to develop. When he made it to the Mavericks in 1997, he was able to live with his father, who was already in Dallas. A dream come true, Oli said. But of course, for a journeyman like Oli, something good had to come to an end. He was cut a week before Christmas. It was a devastating time, Oli said. Sometimes it's hard to feel bad for guys like him. He has been paid millions of dollars, and he has created plenty of highlights for YouTube. He even has a spin move and a floater over Michael Jordan. I can always pull that tape out if my kids don't believe I played in the league, Oli said. Plus, he also got to play for Philadelphia in the 2001 finals, in front of family and friends in Los Angeles, which is his hometown. Oli was actually part of the trade that also brought the Sonics Ray Allen. Oli and Allen were UConn teammates, and were very close friends. Oli thought that he found stability when he signed a 5-year contract with Cleveland in 2003. He bought a house and moved the family, but then was traded to Philadelphia a year later. In this business, nothing is ever set in stone. The family has stayed in Connecticut since that move. Jalen, my son, was in the championship game for football, and I missed that game, Oli said. Those memories I'll never get back again. That was one of my toughest days this year. Instead of continuing his journey in the NBA, Oli eventually got the head coaching job at the University of Connecticut. He won the Big East and national championship in his first season as head coach. However, things took a turn for worse after that season. He's currently not coaching at UConn after plenty of violations and losing since the miraculous run. Joe Smith Joe Smith isn't your average Joe. He's had one of the most intriguing careers in NBA history. Throughout his career, he was one of the NBA's most unique talents in the 2 decades he played in. He would go on to help more teams than any other NBA player. Smith was known as a triple threat. He built his career thanks to his versatility. He'd rebound and do dirty work, or he'd score a basket when called upon. He played for 12 out of 30 NBA franchises, which is almost half the league. No one complains about this though. When you're just a role player, nobody cares for loyalty. After all, it's a business. He shares the record for playing for the most teams in his career with Chucky Brown, Tony Massenburg, and the star of the group, Jim Jackson. Not many players would accept this role in the NBA, but because of his hard work, job dedication, and versatile talents, he became a journeyman that would always be given a chance. Any team was willing to accept Smith on their team if offered in a package deal with other players or as cap space help. When Smith came into the league, he was thought of as a big man that was athletic, strong, and fundamentally sound, with a solid wingspan and wide reach advantage. Smith could run and dunk like a guard, but could also grit inside and play against some of the bigger players in the league. Out of Maryland, he became the Naismith College Player of the Year. He was a sensation. That's why he was drafted first in the 1995 draft by the Golden State Warriors. At that point, some believed that Joe Smith's name was ready for the big bright lights. They thought he was a star in the making. However, here's a disclaimer. Smith was taken before greats like Kevin Garnett, Antonio McDyess, Rasheed Wallace, and Jerry Stackhouse in the draft, and didn't even win Rookie of the Year voting that season. He still proved he belonged in the league after all. Smith's career looked bright in Golden State with the Warriors. However, all good things must come to an end. He had a small pit stop in Philadelphia, and then went on to the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Timberwolves snagged Smith after a lockout in the 1998 free agent market. Smith was supposed to be the prized free agent and the bargain of a century. Smith and Garnett would form a ridiculous frontcourt for years to come for the Timberwolves. But Minnesota was severely punished for different contract violations, and the NBA voided the last year of Smith's contract. Smith had to pack his bags and move to Detroit. Smith didn't play poorly as a backup for the Detroit Pistons, but they were a deeper team. Basically, after 2 solid seasons, everything became a journey for the #1 overall pick. He became a Buck in Milwaukee and then went to Philly. Then of course he became a Nugget in Denver. Beyond those years came his time with the Chicago Bulls and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Some have their opinions, but Joe was always a solid contributor and made a difference to every team he was on, even though he wasn't able to put up significant minutes and statistics. They will always talk about his veteran presence and how that can solidify a team. His teammates are the first ones to say that his presence was felt. His size helped improve front courts, and his name being called off the bench was pure excitement for the crowds. Later, there were trades that sent him to Oklahoma City, and then a trade to New Orleans. However, that trade was rescinded. Everything aside, Smith brought his worth and value with every transaction and transition. Smith got the chance later in his career to play with a very young Atlanta Hawks team. He provided and helped a hungry bunch of Hawks. In that season, Smith became the 92nd player in NBA history to reach 1,000 games played. It gets more wild as he achieved this record in a game against the New Jersey Nets, who he was then traded next. 3 months later, he was told to pick up and get going to the Los Angeles Lakers for Sasha Vujacic in a big trade that involved the Houston Rockets. Smith was fantastic off the bench. He was a legitimate member of a championship Lakers team, again giving them depth and veteran leadership, and making shots happen when on the floor. He was always known for being passionate. He's an energy guy and knew how to motivate his team from the bench. Although he was supposed to be the next big thing, he remained positive and did what was asked of him, even if he couldn't put up Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan-like numbers. Smith is a legend for every step he's taken in the NBA. Some people would truly give up or retire, especially as a #1 pick. Not Smith. He played due to passion, even if he wasn't good enough to start and play large minutes in games. Jim Jackson played a 14-year career in the NBA. Business Insider released a report saying NBA players play for just 4.8 years on average. First off, if Jackson is able to play for 12 different teams in the NBA, then that's extremely impressive, just due to the fact that teams continue to let him go, but other teams still valued him on their team. Few players can play 14 years and average 14 points, 3 assists, and 5 rebounds per game, but Jackson did. Jackson played for the Dallas Mavericks, New Jersey Nets, Golden State Warriors, Philadelphia 76ers, Portland Trailblazers, Atlanta Hawks, Cleveland Cavaliers, Miami Heat, Sacramento Kings, Houston Rockets, Phoenix Suns, Los Angeles Lakers, and then went back to Phoenix. Some have questioned Jackson on why he played for so many teams, as if he wasn't a good fit for the team he played for. Reality is, we should look at the fact that an average NBA player only lasts about 5 years in the NBA. You have to have extraordinary ability to play in the league for longer than a decade. You'll need durability, but you'll also need career success, and that's valued on how well your team does when you're there. Unfortunately for Jackson, he was always screwed over by ownership and wasn't given a fair opportunity even though he had the skills. For example, Chauncey Billups was labeled as a journeyman, but then he landed with the Detroit Pistons, who had Joe Dumars in their front office and Larry Brown as head coach. Billups' career was resurrected, and now he's one of the all-time greats in Detroit history. Jim Jackson didn't have much success on the court throughout the years, but it was more due to misfortune. He wasn't given a good situation in the 14 years he was in the NBA. Jackson averaged more than 20 points per game once on a very bad Dallas Mavericks team. For Jackson, it helped, because this team was fast-paced and lacked scoring talent. Jim Jackson was an average scorer. His career true shooting percentage was only .511, and he wasn't very efficient scoring the ball. He only did well with a high usage rate. Some believe there might have been chemistry issues, and that would have contributed to bouncing around the league. But the main reason he was a journeyman was because he was an average basketball player at best, who never found a solid spot to grow and improve. In Jackson's defense, it's hard to improve on rosters that are slated to finish last in the standings, and he wasn't capable of being the go-to player for any team. He needed superstars around him to make him better, but was never given that opportunity. He bounced around the league, but I'm sure he doesn't regret anything about his NBA journey.